I gave everything to my family for nearly a decade. Then I collapsed, alone in a hospital bed. Not a single call. What they did next will absolutely shock you. For the longest time, I was the man everyone leaned on. My name is Daniel Foster, and if you asked my family who I was, they would probably say I was the dependable one. The guy who always picked up the check. The one who stepped in when rent was due, when the car broke down, when somebody needed bail at 3 in the morning and could not call anyone else. It started small. My sister needed a couple $100 for textbooks. No big deal. Then my mom called, crying over the phone because the gas bill was overdue again. Then came the months when I was covering 2 rents, mine and my brother's, because he just needed time to get on his feet. I told myself it was temporary, that things would even out. But temporary became tradition, and tradition turned into expectation. Birthdays, holidays, graduations, every occasion was somehow sponsored by Daniel. I worked 2 jobs, skipped vacations, cut back on everything just so they would not struggle. And I never once asked for anything in return. They loved to tell people how lucky they were to have me. Our Danny's got a heart of gold, my aunt would say. Always helping out. Real family man. Funny how quickly that praise turns to silence when you are no longer useful. The wake-up call came last winter, around late January. I had been pulling 60-hour weeks at a warehouse job, plus a side hustle driving nights for deliveries. No time for sleep. My back was shot. My knees were done. But the bills did not care. My brother had just lost another job, my mom's roof was leaking, and my cousin had gotten into some kind of mess that needed a few thousand in hush money, fast. So I gave what I had. Again. And then, just like that, my body gave out. I remember the moment too clearly. It was a Thursday. I had just clocked out of the night shift, climbed into my car, and felt this tightness in my chest. Not sharp. Not sudden. Just this heavy, smothering pressure, like someone had dropped a sandbag on me. Next thing I knew, I was on the floor of the emergency room, tubes in my arms and nurses shouting numbers I did not understand. Dehydration. Exhaustion. High blood pressure off the charts. My body had been running on fumes for months, and I had ignored every warning sign, all to keep everyone else afloat. I stayed in that hospital bed for 2 days. Not one visitor. Not one message. Not even a missed call. Just the quiet hum of machines and the occasional beep of a monitor reminding me I was still breathing. I stared at the ceiling that second night and thought to myself, so this is it? After everything I gave? That was the moment I knew something had to change. But what happened next, that was what truly broke me. I did not walk out of that hospital with rage in my heart. It was worse than that. I walked out numb. No fireworks. No dramatic vow to cut people off. Just a quiet, heavy understanding that I had been nothing more than a wallet to the people I once called family. I checked my phone again in the parking lot before getting in the cab. Still nothing. Not even a "how are you" from my mother. Not a single text from my brother, who I had bailed out of jail less than 6 months before. I could not help but think back to that moment, him calling me in tears from the county jail, saying I was his last hope. I remember draining my emergency fund without hesitation. The gratitude lasted all of 2 days. After that, it was like I had imagined the whole thing. So when I got home that night, back to my tiny 1-bedroom apartment with the water-stained ceiling and the old recliner I had fallen asleep in too many times, I made a decision. No more money. No more help. No more excuses. But I did not announce it. I did not send some grand message or post about boundaries online. That is not who I am. I just stopped. My brother texted the next week asking for a ride. I ignored it. 2 days later, my mom left a voicemail. Her tone was light, almost casual. She asked if I could spot her rent, just until her tax return hit. I let it sit in my inbox. By the end of the month, I had 6 unread messages and a string of missed calls. Nobody asked how I was doing. Every single one was a variation of "can you help me?" It was like I had never disappeared. Like my hospital stay never even happened. I started tracking every message. Not out of bitterness, at least not at first. I just wanted to see how long it would take for someone to notice I had stopped giving. 1 month passed. Then 2. The shift was subtle at first. A couple guilt-tripping texts from my sister, claiming she felt like I was acting distant. Then came the angry voicemails from my cousin, accusing me of leaving them hanging when he got hit with an overdraft fee. But none of them ever once asked, "Are you okay?" Not once. Then came the day that blew the whole thing wide open. It started with a phone call from my mother. Her voice was different, less rehearsed, more desperate. She said the landlord was threatening eviction. I asked her, "What happened to your tax refund?" There was a pause on the line. Then she hung up. 2 hours after my mom hung up, I got a message from my sister. It was not a check-in, not even a question, just a statement. We need to talk. This is serious. Don't be selfish. That word hit different, selfish. I had given up years of peace, health, and savings. I had skipped birthdays for overtime, canceled trips, lived without, all so they would not have to. And now I was selfish? That same night, my brother showed up outside my apartment. No warning, just pounding on the door like the place was on fire. I peeked through the peephole. He looked frantic, baggy hoodie, hands buried in his pockets, rocking back and forth like a kid about to lie. I opened the door halfway. He barely waited before launching in. He said he was down to his last tank of gas, that he might lose his job if he missed another shift, that he knew I had always come through before. He never asked how I was. I told him the truth. I said I could not help this time. And just like that, the mask slipped. His face went hard. His voice dropped. He muttered that I was turning my back on family, that everything I had was because we helped you first. I just stared at him. Helped me? They had drained me for years. Not once had any of them offered support. Not with money, not with time, not with kindness. My success came from burning the candle at both ends, pushing through exhaustion, working shifts while sick just to make ends meet for all of us. I told him I nearly passed out behind the wheel a month ago, that I had been hospitalized from stress and dehydration. He blinked. Then he said it. Why didn't you tell anyone? I almost laughed. Because every time I had shown weakness, they had acted like it was an inconvenience. Like I was letting them down. He left after that. No thank you. No apology. Just slammed the door behind him. It should have felt like a win. But instead, it felt like standing in an empty room after a storm has passed, still shaken, still waiting for the next blow. What I did not know was that this was just the beginning. Because the fallout was coming. The messages changed tone fast after that night. It started with little digs. My cousin posted something online, vague but sharp, about people who forget where they came from once they get a little money. My sister followed up with a story about loyalty, captioned with, "Family is not optional." Then came the group texts. Someone added me back into the old family chat we had not used in months. The first message was from my aunt. She said, "We all go through tough times, but abandoning each other is not the answer." No one mentioned my hospital stay. Not once. Instead, they circled like vultures, taking turns trying to guilt me into breaking. My mom chimed in next, saying she was hurt by my silence. My brother added, "Danny used to care." I do not know this new version. It was like watching strangers talk about a man I had never been. They told each other I had changed, that I thought I was better than them, that money had corrupted me. They forgot I was the one who kept the lights on in 3 different homes, the one who fixed their cars, bought groceries, even paid for a funeral no one else could afford. I watched the texts pile up, paragraphs of pity and passive aggression. But the one that really got me came from my mom, late one night. She wrote, "Your father would be ashamed." That was the knife in the ribs. He had passed 4 years earlier. Heart failure. Quiet. Sudden. He was not perfect, but he worked hard. And when he was alive, he kept the worst of the family's mess from falling on me. He used to call me his anchor. Now she was using his name like a weapon. That night, I typed out a reply. Something long. Something raw. But I never sent it. I just sat there in the dark, reading their messages again and again, realizing something cold and awful. They never loved me for me. They loved the version of me that gave. That kept the engine running. That never asked for anything back. Without that version, I was just dead weight. And I had not even told them the truth yet. The truth about where their money had really gone. Here is the part no one in my family ever knew. Most of that money I gave them, especially in the last year, was not mine. I had taken out a line of credit to cover it. Yeah, I went into debt for them. At first, it was manageable. I figured it was temporary, just something to bridge the gap until things smoothed out. But temporary turned into monthly, then bi-weekly, then weekly. The last time my cousin called me crying about needing help for his daughter's surgery, I was already 3 payments behind, and I still wired him the money. Not long after, I got the letter from the bank. Final notice. Account past due. Balance growing fast. That same day, my sister texted me asking if I could front her some cash for just a little getaway to clear her head. I stared at the screen like I was in some kind of sick joke. While I was skipping meals to stay on top of interest fees, they were planning beach weekends. So yeah, when I ended up in that hospital, It was not just my body breaking down. It was the pressure, the shame, the feeling of drowning slowly while everyone else floated along like I did not even exist. And still, I never told them, because part of me was scared to admit I had allowed it to get that bad, that I had let people drain me dry in the name of love, loyalty, family. But here's the twist. After I stopped paying, after I went silent, that is when they finally remembered I was real, because their lives started falling apart. Rent missed, utilities cut off, credit cards maxed out, and they all pointed the finger in one direction, at me, like I had betrayed them, like it was my failure, not theirs. My mom called it the collapse, said everything went wrong the moment I changed. No one asked what pushed me to change in the first place. They just needed a scapegoat. So they built one. And the worst part? They were not even close to done. You ever watch people set fire to the house they lived in, then blame the one guy who walked out? That is what it felt like. By the end of spring, my sister had moved back in with our mom. My cousin lost his car. My brother bounced between temp jobs, each one shorter than the last. And me? I was climbing out of debt, one slow paycheck at a time. I ate cheap, cut back on everything, picked up extra shifts. My body was still recovering, but I forced myself forward because there was no one left to fall back on, and no one asking how I was doing anyway. Then one night, I got a knock on the door. It was my aunt, the one who used to brag about my big heart to her church friends. She stood there with a grocery bag in her hand, face pinched and fake polite. Said she wanted to talk. I let her in. I should not have. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table I had eaten alone at every night for years while they filled each other's homes with noise and food and warmth I had paid for but never felt. She did not waste time. She said the family was hurting, that people were angry, that I had abandoned them at their lowest. I kept my face still, just listening. Then she leaned in, said my mom might lose the house, that my brother was drinking again, that things were bad, and that I could still fix it. I asked her why no one visited me in the hospital. She blinked, caught off guard, said something like, "We did not know how bad it was." I told her they knew. They just did not care. She said that was unfair. I said nothing. She kept going, digging for sympathy, guilt, anything. And then she played her final card. Your father would have stepped up. I stood up. I looked her dead in the eye. And I said the one thing I had never said to any of them before. You do not get to use him. Not anymore. I opened the door and held it there until she walked out without another word. That was the last time any of them saw the old me. Because what came next? That was me finally taking the gloves off. The next morning, I started pulling the strings. Quietly. First, I closed the shared bank account I had opened years ago to help my mom manage bills. I had left it open too long, thinking it was harmless. Turns out she had been dipping into it for things like shopping sprees and her monthly hair appointments, paid for by the son who skipped his own checkups for years. Then I called the landlord whose name was on my brother's lease. The lease I had co-signed. I told him I was removing myself. No more guarantees. My brother would have to qualify on his own now. He did not. Eviction notice hit by the end of the week. Word got around fast after that. My cousin called me screaming. Said I had destroyed the family. That I was heartless. That I was making a statement by letting people suffer. I did not answer. My silence said everything. It was not revenge. It was reality. Consequences they had avoided for years because I was always the one to pad the fall. Now the floor was hitting them hard. I expected backlash. Maybe even someone showing up again to plead, maybe threaten. Instead, they disappeared. Phone went quiet. Group chat went cold. I guess when people realize they cannot milk you anymore, they forget you exist. And honestly, that silence? It was the first real peace I had felt in years. But then, something happened that I did not expect. Something that shook the whole story loose. One of them came back. But not for money. It was my sister. Of all people, I never thought it would be her. She showed up unannounced, standing at my door like a shadow from some past life. She looked smaller than I remembered, less put together. No heels, no makeup, just her, holding a manila envelope and a face that did not quite know what it wanted to feel. I hesitated, then let her in. She sat on the couch, barely speaking. For the first few minutes, it was like she had forgotten how to talk to me without asking for something. Her eyes kept darting around the room like she was seeing it for the first time. Then, finally, she said it. I did not know you were in the hospital. I kept quiet. She pulled a piece of paper from the envelope and slid it across the table. It was a copy of the discharge form. My name, Date, diagnosis. Highlighted. Circled. Marked up like a student trying to study guilt. She said she found it on Mom's desk a week ago. Apparently, my mom had known all along. She had even driven past the hospital one of those nights. But she never went in. She said it would make things worse, my sister whispered. Said you would use it to punish us. I laughed, but it came out bitter and hollow. She looked at me, teary-eyed now, and said, I believed her. She went quiet after that. I could see her jaw clenching like she was trying not to fall apart. Then she told me the part that broke me in a new way. She admitted she had taken money from my account once. Not just borrowed. Not just helped herself to cash I had offered. No, she had logged in while I was at work one day. Transferred $1,000 to cover a weekend trip with her boyfriend. They had told everyone it was his treat. She said she hated herself for it, that it had eaten at her ever since. I asked her why she was telling me now. She stared at the floor. Because you stopped being the backup plan. And I realized I do not even know who I am without someone to lean on. The room was silent. She stood up to leave, but before she did, she turned around and said one last thing. I do not deserve forgiveness, but I hope one day you get to be more than just what everyone needs. Then she left, and I sat there, holding that envelope, realizing something I had not wanted to admit. It was never about money. It was about being seen, and I never really was. After my sister left, I sat there for a long time, just staring at the envelope. Part of me wanted to throw it out, pretend none of this mattered anymore. But the truth was, her visit cracked something in me wide open. Not because I needed her apology, but because it confirmed what I had been afraid to say out loud. They never saw me. Not really. To them, I was a service, a resource, a safety net with a pulse. And the second that net disappeared, their world fell apart. And somehow, they blamed me for it. I went through the bank statements that night, looked at every dollar I had spent on them over the years. Groceries, gas, rent, bail, wedding gifts, medical bills, loans that were never paid back. Every swipe of the card was a memory of me saying, I got you, even when no one ever said, I got you back. It was all right there, in black and white. I printed out the whole record and mailed it to my mother's house. Not out of spite, but to show her what I had carried. Not just for a month. For nearly 8 years. I included one note. It was short. This is everything. Now we are even. And that was it. No big speech. No calls. No more trying to explain myself to people who only listened when their wallets were thin. I changed my number the next week. Quietly moved to a smaller place in a different part of town. Started fresh. No more handouts. No more emergencies that were somehow mine to solve. No more playing the role of the dependable one while slowly dying inside. And for the first time in years, the silence felt earned. But that is not the end of it. Because what happened next? That was something I never expected. They came back, every one of them. But this time, they were the ones who needed saving. And I was done being the hero. It was around the holidays when the messages started again. Different numbers. Unknown emails. Social media requests from accounts I did not recognize until I looked at the profile pictures. One by one, they came crawling back. Not in a flood, but in a slow, persistent drip. Like leaky pipes you try to ignore until the damage becomes visible. My brother was first. Left a voicemail I never asked for. Said he had turned over a new leaf, whatever that meant. Claimed he was in therapy now. Said he was trying to be a better man. His voice cracked when he mentioned he had missed a car payment and might lose his ride to work. He paused like he expected me to jump in, offer a solution. But I didn't. My cousin followed with a long, overly sweet email, full of fake warmth and references to how close we used to be. He even attached a picture of his newborn. Said he and his girlfriend were struggling, that it was a rough time to bring a child into the world. He included his Venmo at the bottom of the message. No shame. Just a smiley face and a line that said, anything helps, fam. Even my mom tried. She sent a Christmas card. Just one. No return address. The handwriting was unmistakable, still neat, still in that soft cursive she used for church envelopes and grocery lists. No envelope. Just the card itself, bent from the weather. Inside it read, if your heart ever opens again, we'll be waiting. No apology. No mention of my hospital stay. No acknowledgement of the silence when I had needed even a sliver of humanity. Just a gentle tug on the same old guilt strings she had played my whole life. The strange part? It did not make me angry. It just made me tired. Tired in a way that lives deep in your bones. The kind of tired that builds over decades of being invisible unless someone needs something. The kind that makes you question whether love was ever real, or just the name they gave to whatever they were extracting from you. They thought enough time had passed. They figured I had softened, that maybe I was feeling lonely. They were wrong, because what they never realized was that I had already grieved them, not just once, but in pieces, over years. Every time I was left out, every time they laughed at my pain, every time I gave more than I had and got silence in return. You cannot miss what you already buried. Still, I paused before deleting the messages. My thumb hovered over the screen more times than I want to admit. Not because I wanted to forgive them, not because I was second-guessing myself, but because I needed to feel, one last time, what it meant to choose myself. So I did. I blocked them all again. Not out of vengeance, out of survival. Because here is what no one tells you. When you stop being the person everyone leans on, they do not collapse out of grief. They collapse out of habit. You were not their foundation. You were their shortcut, their easy fix, their fallback plan. And when shortcuts vanish, people are forced to reckon with the house they built on borrowed ground. They wanted me to return to the role, to slip back into that old version of me who never said no, who bit until his spine gave out, who smiled while dying inside. But that version of me? He was gone, and I buried him in the same silence they once gave me. A few months later, something unexpected showed up in my new mailbox, a forwarded letter from my old address. I stared at the handwriting for a long time before opening it. It was from my sister. She had moved in with 3 roommates, was working 2 jobs. She said the water heater broke in the middle of a snowstorm and they had to boil water just to shower. She said she had learned more about herself in 6 months than in the previous 8 years. She did not ask for anything. She just wrote. I get it now. I really do. You were holding up all of us while breaking down in silence. I never even asked if you were okay. I just assumed you would always be there. That was my failure, not yours. At the very end, she added, you were right to walk away. I just wish I had noticed you before you left. I folded the letter carefully, tucked it into an old book I keep by the bed. A reminder not of them, but of me. Of the moment I finally chose peace over approval, boundaries over begging, self-worth over self-sacrifice. Now, I still live quiet. I still work hard. But my money is mine now. My time is mine. My soul no longer belongs to people who only dialed my number when their lives caught fire. I spend my evenings alone sometimes, but not lonely. I walk to the store without checking my account balance. I sleep without a phone buzzing at midnight. I eat meals I do not rush through just to get back to a second shift. I laugh, sometimes even out loud, for no reason at all. I am not the dependable one anymore. I am just Daniel. And for the first time in my life, that is not just enough. It is everything. That was my story. What would you have done? Drop a comment and hit subscribe for more.